I want to start this video by clarifying a few things. First, this video is a remake of a 30-minute long editorial I was going to do on the reflection, but my editing software and aging computer made it much harder for me to make that video than it should have been, allowing me to not upload it 1 week after the show finished airing like I wanted to. Second is that I just watched the RPG Monger's video on the reflection, and in his video, he talked about the main points I wanted to bring up in my own in 8 minutes and months ahead of me. That video has 15,000 views, and I don't want to upload my own video without looking like an oversaturated copy. Third being how hard it was for me to edit the first video. The technical difficulties that I constantly had to push through, plus the other videos that I was making at the same time, stressed and burned me out in a way I never thought a video could do before. I didn't want to give up talking about the reflection because I still had something that I wanted to say, and I didn't want my constant bitching over how stressful it was to make the original video to look petty and go to waste. So in order to come back on the workflow so I can get a chance to de-stress and work on other videos and projects, I'm remaking my video on the reflection in this podcast form. I'll still be bringing up the points and topics as I originally wanted to, but this format is much faster and easier for me to edit. Plus, since this is kind of free form and I'm not following a script, I'm able to say more things that I couldn't do in the original video. Longer or faster, I have no idea. Plus, this format allows me to distress better. So I really hope you understand and will stick around to watch this video / listen to this podcast. Finally, I'm making this video for everyone, anime fans and comic fans alike, and I hope that you will stay and hear me out. Because if I remain on YouTube and if this channel continues to grow, it's my goal to expose people to new media and give a voice to niche and underappreciated ones. Hence is why I want to talk about anime on a channel with mostly comic fans and expose those fans to small indies like webcomics. With that being said, I want to talk about what could have been with the lost potential of The Reflection and why you should kind of sort of watch it anyway. For those of you who don't know, The Reflection is an original anime created by Stan Lee and produced by Studio Dean. The show follows the events of The Reflection, an earth-changing phenomenon where a mysterious light appeared in the sky. Those bathed in the light were granted powers for good, while the shadow for evil, as many of those affected by the reflection's shadow were mentally and physically mutated. But those who survived were incredibly lucky for better or for worse, because the reflection left a trail of death behind it as well, taking the lives of millions, and the day of the reflection will be remembered for that. Our main character, Eleanor Evans, is a freelance photographer who, like many other reflected that were exposed by the light, has to hide her powers due to the discrimination against the reflected. But unlike others, she wants to use her powers for good, even though she can't control them. She spends her free time searching for a hero named Exxon, who is very private and only appears when there's danger, but her hard work pays off when she does get close to him when he appears in her bedroom. When asked about training Eleanor, he turns her down because he says he doesn't feel like babysitting, but instead employs her to find a man named Wraith, a person that no one knows who he looks like. After New York is attacked by Stan Lee and the Shadow Squad, the two must team up and set out on the only lead that they have. The Reflection finished airing a month ago, but it made a big stir before and during its broadcast. On the website My Anime List, the anime currently sports a 5 out of 10 rating, which on that site means purgatory. And anti-tubers tell people to avoid the show or watch it just to see how weird it is. I've heard nothing from comic fans about their thoughts on the anime. The Reflection is a story of what could have been. It's a mess of poor decisions and wasted potential, yet it's a mess that I think should be given a chance, and it's far from how poorly produced the show is, even though I know that many of those who I recommend the anime to will dislike and drop it, and that's perfectly fine, and I will get to why soon. I believe The Reflection fell for 3 key reasons: the audience, the production, and finally the studio that made it, and I want to go over each of these in order. I believe The Reflection had good intentions by it. Stan Lee, a comic creator, wanted to bring his style of story and storytelling to a different media like he did the MCU. If you're an anime fan, you may or may not give a shit about comics outside of MCU. I'm not saying all of you for obvious reasons, but most of you. When adding The Reflection to your plan to watch list, there were probably many thoughts going through your head. Maybe you wanted to watch it because you know who Stan Lee is and wanted to see what the man was doing in Japan making an anime. Maybe you're a person who watches everything when it comes out at the start of a new season just to see what you'll be watching. Maybe you were excited at the thought of comic fans coming in to watch The Reflection and wanting to check out more anime and giving them your recommendations. Or maybe you wanted to see what the show would bring to the table since it was an original anime, not being based on any existing source. And if you're a comic fan, you probably don't give a shit about anime. So you probably saw on a comic site that the Reflection was a thing that was coming into existence. And maybe you wonder what the Stan Lee was doing in Japan about to make a Japanese cartoon with an original story that he made. Maybe you would have passed on the show, maybe you would check it out just for Stan's name, or maybe you never heard about it until now. So the Reflection is targeted to two audiences: anime fans who don't care about comics and comic fans who don't care about anime. Two very different but also very similar sets of nerds, with the only people really excited to watch the show being fans of both anime and comics, or anime and the MCU, like me and one other friend of mine. And I believe that if the Reflection was executed better, then this clash of audience wouldn't be a problem. The Reflection is a show that wants to be a comic book. It has animation and character design that represents that of a comic, with thick outlines and a color palette that very clearly wants to represent kind of an older comic book. It even has a story and the music to boot. So when watching the show, I really do feel like I'm watching a show based on a comic book because of how it's written like a comic, how there are Western characters in a Western setting, and finally you have the animation. And that's not a problem. It's a very interesting style to see come out of Japan and be put front and center. In fact, when watching AniTubers talk about the show, the animation was always their prime target. It was praised for trying to represent a comic book, yet the animation is also the weakest point of the show. But I'll be getting to the animation when I talk about the production. Anime fans are very welcoming, but also very protective. Although anime is becoming, or is already mainstream, we are still very misunderstood. There are still hit pieces against us, people who stereotype us and call us children, perverts, and even pedophiles because of the stereotypes that surround anime. We have our fair share of toxicity in the community, elite fans, and fucking bullshit like the sub versus dub war and other shit like making the director of the Netflix Death Note movie with Twitter. But anime fans are never against new fans coming into the community. We love new fans because we want people to understand us. We love new fans because we want to tell them what kind of shows they should watch. We love new fans because the misunderstood should be the most open, welcoming, and accepting people. If comic fans watch The Reflection and they decided to watch more anime, then anime fans would be ready to greet them at the door. But unfortunately, comic fans never took notice of The Reflection, and I believe that's because of how niche anime is. When Spider-Man came out in 2002, it was a bit of a big deal to comic fans to finally see a beloved character be portrayed on the big screen. However, before Spider-Man came out and launched us into this new craze of superhero movies, having a movie based on comics were nothing new. There's been plenty of movies before Spider-Man that were based on comics: Superman, Blade, Batman, and more. But it was easy for the mainstream audience and comic fans to sort of in a way join together, even though we are still separate, because movies are mainstream. Movies have been around for a very long time, and there's been plenty of movies that were based on existing properties. Sure, comic book movies were a little strange to the mainstream audience, but that's because it's a freaking comic book movie. Nowadays, the mainstream audience knows what to expect when they go into a Marvel movie or a DC movie, because comic book movies have proven themselves. The MCU has proven itself. They're fun, family-friendly movies with strange characters, but they're characters that we love and welcome. The Reflection is an original anime, not based on an existing property, but because it has Stan's name attached to it, comic fans will probably want to watch it, because this is the Stan Lee, the high and almighty god of comics, who can apparently do no wrong. But anime isn't mainstream like movies. We are still very niche, and many people don't know how to access anime outside of Blu-ray sales and of course Netflix. Not many people know what Crunchyroll, Funimation, Sentai, or Aniplex is, and because The Reflection didn't have much marketing or coverage by the comic fans, it was only watched, covered, and discussed about through anime fans. The alienation of audience is probably why many comic fans didn't watch, hear about, or care about The Reflection. Because of how small yet mainstream anime is, many comic fans do not know or care about it. And because The Reflection tries so hard to be like a comic book, many anime fans will dismiss it for wearing the skin of an anime. In fact, when The Reflection was first announced a year ago, it was the subject of controversy around anime fans because of how similar the premise sounded to My Hero Academia, and I can easily say that although The Reflection and Hero Aka shares the same premise, they are far from being alike. I believe that if the production of The Reflection was better, then comic fans would come in and watch the show because it would have hype behind it, because anime fans would make a giant fuss about it, because comic book websites and outlets would cover it, and if the production of The Reflection was better if it was able to grab the attention of comic fans than for one glorious season. Just like the release of every new Marvel movie, anime fans and comic fans would come together, and we would have those new fans in our community. We would be able to discuss and share some of our favorite shows and our favorite comics with each other, but unfortunately the Reflection failed to deliver with its production, especially when it has so much promise behind it. The production of The Reflection is definitely the most disappointing aspect of the show. Because of behind the scene, there was a lot of promise. The director of The Reflection is the director of Mushishi, a very popular, very acclaimed show that is beloved by audience and critics alike. The director has also worked on Akunohana, The Flowers of Evil, a very ambitious rotoscoped anime. Even the music composer has done very good work, as he's also worked on Akunohana, Michigo and Hashkin, Mushishi, and even Detroit Middle City. And I'm sorry because I just now realized I called him the music composer when he's actually the sound director. The scriptwriter has worked on things that I don't care about and never will watch. So having a very acclaimed director behind your project is a bit of a big deal. This director and an original story from Stan Lee is a recipe for success, but unfortunately the show fell through. The Reflection has great potential outside of the director and the original creator. It has a story that, yes, has been done before, but if My Hero Academia has proven something, it's that you can take something old and refine it to be something new. The show very clearly wants to be very fast-paced and action-heavy, plus the characters aren't that bad either. After all, I believe that Stan Lee has always been strongest when writing characters. After all, he's made many beloved and iconic ones. But unfortunately, the production of The Reflection suffers. Like many original anime, the story loses its footing, and the writing of the show goes from being promising to being very lackluster and confusing. Even when the show starts to pick up and make sense, it immediately falters and crumbles. And because the show wants to look like a Western work, a Western comic, it suffers because the team behind it doesn't quite know how to animate such an action-heavy show in the style that is in. Western and Eastern animation styles are very different, and although anime has grown and evolved, you don't often see much anime outside of the Eastern style that they're used to. The animation in The Reflection is kind of terrible, and it's hard to believe that this is a show produced by a professional studio in 2017. The action scenes are very slow and stiff. There's a scene in episode 1 where the character Guy or Ian is fighting a monster and they're flying through the sky, and every punch doesn't have any weight or timing or reaction to it. The incredibly slow animation doesn't make you believe that these are two people in an intense battle in the air, and the editing with the sound design also doesn't help to solidify that feeling of an intense battle in the sky. There are moments with very simple anatomy mistakes, sloppy editing, and very questionable directing from a director that has proven himself in the anime world. How poorly produced this anime is half of the reason why anime fans hate this show, because it is terribly produced. The show has style, but it doesn't have the execution. It looks terrible. It looks incredibly flat, incredibly stiff, and it's honestly an eyesore seeing how many simple mistakes there are. And once again, this show wants to be very action heavy, but unfortunately the team cannot do that because they don't know how to execute this style of animation. Yet it's not impossible for Japan to not animate an action heavy show in a different style. It's been done before. The anime Panty and Stocking came out in 2010, and that show was an action comedy inspired by what Americans found funny. The art style is very reminiscent of Powerpuff Girls, but the humor is very adult, as it's full of sex jokes and dick jokes and every other dirty joke in the book, because once again, it's what Americans find funny. Studio Madhouse, a studio that is known for its action anime, worked with DC to animate their straight-to-DVD movie Batman Gotham Knights. That movie was rather experimental at times, but it was well executed with this Western style, and the animation didn't suffer or falter because of the style of art. I don't know why it was so hard for this team to animate The Reflection other than an experience that led them to not be able to animate in a style that they didn't know, along with not being able to do very action heavy scenes. Because, and this leads me to my final point, Studio Dean is a very small and very inexperienced studio. They've been around for a very long time, but during that time they've never quite gained an identity. Studio Dean is a studio that's mostly well known because of how hated they are. Although they've made good shows and movies like Angel's Egg and 2016's Konosuba and Showa Genroku Roku Rakugo Shinju, people royally shit on them for how many missteps they took in the past. No Fate Stay Night fan will forgive them for their 2006 adaptation of Fate Stay Night, now lovingly referred to as Dean Stay Night. We all remember the massive disappointment that was Log Horizon Season 2 once Studio Dean gained the rights to it. Every horror anime fan is going to collectively shit themselves once they hear that Studio Dean is adapting the works of Junji Ito after how they royally fucked up the adaptation of 2014's Pupa. Although Studio Dean is a studio that should be somewhat appreciated for giving niche shows to niche audiences, like how they've given many yaoi shows to us Fujoshi, they've done more wrong than right. And even last year, when they started to prove themselves, when they started to pick themselves up and give them an identity by making good shows with good people behind them, here they are with The Reflection, once again taking 10 steps back from those 3 steps forward they took last year. And because, once again, Dean gives niche shows to niche audiences, they're still a rather small studio with not much to work with. They're not a Studio Bones or a Madhouse, studios that would have actually been able to animate The Reflection and give Stan what they wanted with the show. Because Bones and Madhouse are studios with an identity, they have proven themselves to be able to animate what The Reflection could have been. They have the staff, they have the budget, they have the ability to be able to animate this show. Dean does not have that, which is why Dean was the ultimate failure of this show, because once again, this show had promise. It had Stan Lee creating an original story, it had a acclaimed director, it even had a good sound designer, which the music is the best part of the show. But once you see the word Studio Dean, everything immediately crumbles, because Dean is the worst studio you could have gone to animate this show. And I get that animation is very hard and a team effort, and I get that Stan probably could have never gone to JC Staff or Madhouse or even some of the studios in between, like Studio Wit, the animators of Attack on Titans, JC Staff, an animation studio that can somewhat do action but has highly detailed and rendered animation. Production IG could have also been a good studio to gone to, because when they feel like animating, they can animate, even though like many other animation studios, they have their problems. I mean, they animated Neo Yokio this year. So yeah, Studio Dean sucks, and they're the reason why this show sucks. They're the weak link in an otherwise strong chain. And if this show went to another animation studio, then this show could have come out better, and then we could have had the production that was needed. Then we could have not this clash and alienation of audience, but 2 different audiences coming together and discovering new media. However, I still recommend this show, because yes, although this show ultimately failed because of how disappointing it was with its production and its wasted potential, I only recommend this to comic fans and comic book fans alone, because at its core, this show was not made or meant for anime fans. It was not written for anime fans, and there kind of wasn't even a reason for The Reflection to be an anime, but once again, there was never really a reason for comic book movies to be movies. Because Marvel fans, we have it so rough right now. We're stuck with Riri Williams and Squirrel Girl and Kindergarten Teacher Blade and fucking gay Iceman, and fuck, Brian Michael Bendis is going to DC now. I don't want a fucking black gay Batman. Nobody wants a fucking black gay Batman. This is coming from a black gay girl herself. Fuck the idea of a black gay Batman. Seriously. Don't give me that trash. I'm dead ass serious. But the point is that we're thirsty right now. We're craving new comics. Good comics. We want fun stories about costume guys with powers punching other costume guys with powers in the face. And we can't get that with Marvel right now, because they're so infested with their own bullshit fucking politics that it's impossible for us to get that. Which is why I want comic fans to watch The Reflection. Yes, it is incredibly poorly produced, and yes, you will drop this show. I will not doubt or blame you for dropping this show, because as I said earlier, although this show has strong characters, it's the writing that makes this show crumble apart. But nevertheless, The Reflection is very much worth a watch. And I say that partly because comic fans don't give a shit about anime, but I also partly say that because it's Stan Lee. The Stan Lee making an original story for us, a story that's kind of sort of in the vein of X-Men, with characters that are like mellow Deadpool and Kitty Pryde, and there's even a washed up one-hit wonder's Tony Stark. And when watching this show to completion, although I was disappointed, I was also entertained, because I crave entertainment from Western comics and I can't get that. This is the next best thing to a Western comic, but ultimately I want comic fans to watch The Reflection to discover anime. And I want you Marvel fans to watch this show to be disappointed. I want you to drop this show because ultimately I want you to move on and watch those shows that you can get into as a Western comic fan and go, oh hey, there's something much better out there, which is why I'm about to give you a watch list and tell you what order you should watch these shows. So if you watch The Reflection and decide to jump into anime and don't know where to start, then here you go. Start off with The Reflection and be disappointed. Then move on to Tiger and Bunny, a show about superheroes saving the day, not only to protect the people, but also for the people's entertainment, as they compete against one another in a live TV show to become the king of heroes. Tiger and Bunny is a show that commentates on how we, the audience, view superheroes as a piece of entertainment, while also reminding us that our favorite superheroes have lives of their own. The anime takes great influence from Western comics, more specifically DC, but there's a bit of Marvel in there as well. It also has really good CGI sequences. For a show that came out in 2010, that puts most of the shit that comes out nowadays to shame. Oh, Berserk 2016, your walk cycles will never leave my mind. Tiger and Bunny is a very story-driven show with a mysterious plot that also has slice-of-life episodes woven into it for good effect. It's 24 episodes long, has a great and what I think is a really underrated English dub, and is more in the vein of The Reflection, which is why you should watch it afterwards just to watch the taste of The Reflection out of your mouth. Then I want you to move on to One Punch Man, a hilarious satire of superheroes that follows a bored bald guy who's a hero for fun, even though he can take out villains with just one punch. Yes, I know that the main character sounds very overpowered since he's able to just punch a guy with one single punch and immediately take him out, but it's the main character Saitama's attitude and how bored he is with being a hero even though he's doing it for fun. That is what makes this show so intriguing. Plus there's the fact that Saitama is always getting dealt a bad hand even though we know how powerful he is. The show has a great cast of characters that help carry it along with absolutely incredible action sequences done by Studio Madhouse. One Punch Man has also been dubbed into English, but unfortunately Netflix decided to be fucking assholes and not put the English dub up on their site even though they promised that they would after how they corrupted the dub track, promised to fix it in a week, and it's been several months and it's still not here. Thanks a lot, Netflix. Fuck you too, Netflix. And finally, I want you to finish off your journey with My Hero Academia, a refreshing take on superheroes that follows a powerless underdog in a superpowered world, as he is granted his greatest wish and follows his dreams to become the best hero he can be, as he attends a school made just for training their students to become great heroes. Hero Aka has a fantastic cast of characters. There's only one person in this show that I truly do not like, even though he does have some redeeming qualities that keeps me from completely hating him. Bakugo is trash. The villains are very intimidating and the animation dubbed by Studio Bones is fantastic. Unfortunately, the show doesn't really pick up until season 2 with its tournament arc, but season 1 is enjoyable enough where season 2, from what I've seen and from what I heard, sounds amazing. I'm not a big fan of the show myself and I really hope season 2 can change that, and this really is a great show that you should watch if you are into Western comics. Also, the show's English dub is fantastic. All of these shows are available to you for legal streaming on Funimation, Crunchyroll, Netflix, and Hulu. So if you watch The Reflection, then please, I highly encourage you to support the series and its hardworking animators by heading over to either Crunchyroll.com to watch it in its Japanese sub or Funimation to watch it in the English dub, which you can finish by the time this video goes up. You will need a premium Funimation account to watch the dub, however, and premium accounts to both websites to watch the show ad-free, but you do get a free trial and the price for both accounts are $12. It's a very small cost to be able to stream thousands of titles in English or Japanese and to watch currently airing shows or old classics. I am not sponsored sponsored by any of these websites. I'm just a supporter of the anime industry, and I hope to pass that on. I'll leave a link to the Reflections page on both websites, along with a link to an anime search engine that will help you find legal sites to watch these titles and support the anime industry. Before you get started with that, I would like to let you know that last year Funimation and Crunchyroll became partners. So now Funimation is trying to go dub only, which means that they only want to have their shows in English, while Crunchyroll is constantly receiving the subtitle version of those shows. And on Crunchyroll, you can also watch currently airing shows an hour after they go up in Japan, while Funimation dubs those currently airing shows several weeks later. Dubbing anime takes a lot of time, so you really can't dub a show directly after it goes up in Japan, since you have to write the show, direct the show, and find actors. Also, Funimation's website relaunched a few months ago, and they're still working out the bugs and kinks. It's a lot better now than then, but there still are problems, like the new player having the audio not match the video and the UI won't going into hiding. It's much easier and less frustrating to watch on one of Funny's apps, like on your phone, tablet, or console such as PS4 or Xbox, just to save you the headache. You will still need that premium account to access their library, but it's a great service, so please be nice to them. With that being said, I believe that's it. I believe I got all my points across, so thank you all so much for watching this video. Thank you for understanding. I will have more videos coming in soon, but the rest of my videos are going to be nothing but bite-sized videos, because I have been requested to cover some shows and comics, and I want to talk about some of the things that I want to talk about, but I really just need to de-stress from all of the burnout and get ready for December. So if you like this video and want to see those future videos, then please consider subscribing and to follow me on Twitter at CallMeAriNS. With that being said, thank you all so much for listening. I really hope that you took and learned something from this video, and yeah, that's it. My name is Ari. See you in the next one, and have a good one.